Hello, and welcome back to the Scholarly Sorcerers Podcast. We've been gone for a long time, but now we are not gone, so don't ask questions. I'm here with Cad Jones,
Hello.
or BG Joe.
Yeah. We've got about 2 months worth of updates to go over since we put this off for so long.
So yeah, the first thing is Moonlight Village public testing. I skipped this, so I have no idea what's in the Moonlight Village.
It is an in-game dungeon that's focused on bullet hell. Most notably, it has fishing in it. You can go fishing after you beat the bosses sometimes. You don't fight the bosses, but instead the phases are time-based, and then you can speed up time by either dealing damage or in some phases standing close to a lantern. So it's a very different dungeon. It also doesn't give any exaltation, though there has been discussion of it giving a random exaltation.
The only thing I know about it is the hard mode for it is specifically like person specific, so you get to choose whether or not you do hard mode, which I think works a lot better than the Shatters hard mode. Not that the Shatters hard mode is bad or anything, just that, you know, having it be random is not as good, and being able to decide whether or not you want it is also a good idea.
But that's just public testing. It's not on production yet and probably won't be on production for quite some time. The first update that we got after Oryxmas, full update, was the Turbine Trouble Steamworks event. This was a free campaign that had some gravestone skins, then full steam ahead leaderboards that you get for running Steamworks. There were also Chinese New Year pets, including a new Chinese New Year rabbit for the Year of the Rabbit. And then some visual fixes to the Battle Pass. They fixed the slight offset with the progress bar so it actually lines up with the rewards. That's been in the Battle Pass since it was released in August.
Yeah, I mean, the Battle Pass being fixed is obviously a good thing. The Steamworks are obviously a good thing. Very good dungeon. Definitely the best dungeon they've added this year.
It was added last year. This is the event for it specifically, which was a leaderboard event that was not well received when it was the Shatters rehearsal. It was not well received when it was a speed run, and so they did another one because the first two weren't well received, and this one wasn't well received either. It wasn't as bad though, since Steamworks is actually somewhat doable in a public group. You were able to get in the top 100 without running keys. It was just difficult.
Yeah, the gravestones are cool.
That is true. Then during that event, they improved the launcher a little bit. There's not much to say about this. They added a loading bar, and when you open it, they added Realmi to the list of random external links here. They can also embed images into the previews. I don't think they've actually done this yet, but they have the functionality for it. And there's also a button to go to support. Wow, look at that. I clicked it and I went to the support page.
Obviously, getting more buttons is always a good thing. I would like a home menu for the actual game, but you know, if the launcher can be almost that, I guess it's okay.
There are still more launcher improvements they want to make. I would certainly like if the launcher automatically closed when you opened the game, or if it looked a bit better, because right now it still has the voxel background that they kind of have moved past for the rest of the game's graphics. And also, the CAPTCHA is not very good. It stops a lot of new players from playing and doesn't really do anything to combat bots.
Yeah, the CAPTCHA is bad, but I don't know. I don't know why they don't just use like an actual CAPTCHA.
If they used an actual CAPTCHA, they'd find a way to get malware into the game like they did on the blog 3 times.
Top Hat Bowser is really doing his work out there on the blog.
If you thought he was doing his work before, just wait till you hear about the Valentines event, where on release there was a bug that made legendary eggs basically a guaranteed drop from everything.
They were trying to save that for Easter, but they released it a little too early.
this bug was on testing, where it was reported and supposedly fixed, but then it became unfixed when they pushed the release to production. Who knows why that happens? Apparently that's also what happened when Steamworks released. The boss was invulnerable for up to an hour on the release day of just doing nothing, and so you had to sit around and wait. That apparently was never on testing and then just appeared when it was pushed to production. So Deca should really try to figure out what's causing that and do something about it, because it definitely is not a good look for them.
Yeah, I mean, everything is going to come with its bugs when it's initially released. Doesn't matter what game it is. Doesn't matter how much public testing or private testing you have. Everything's going to end up with some bugs, so it is somewhat forgivable, but, you know, having to wait an hour to fight a boss might be a little bit much.
It was kind of interesting on day one. I still have a recording of it. I actually played Scribble while waiting. It's kind of scary because you never know when the boss is going to start up again, so you have to keep an eye on the game while you do other things. But that's out of the game now. They also, for the Valentine's release, added Tier 11 sub-weaponry skins to Belladonna's Garden. They changed the Cogbolt Steamworks with a few major changes. Notably, there are no longer any branching paths in the dungeon. Most of the enemies are affected by a variety of status effects, including paralyzed, stun, daze, the usual. And all the turrets in the dungeon, which were invincible before, can now be killed.
Okay.
They also released the Nature versus Tech season, which, unlike most Battle Pass seasons, is actually only 35 days long instead of the usual 65 days. This is because they want Season 5 to begin before the Easter patch, since the Easter patch is going to have a lot of big content. They don't want to have a big release with another big release, because the big releases tend to have some issues, and so if you release everything at once, it could be really bad, and they want to avoid that.
Which, you know, is fair. I can understand that. If you can't properly bug test everything, at least don't ruin multiple things with a single bug.
That was also their justification for releasing seasonality, the seasonal characters, before they released missions. Which was probably a good thing, because seasonal characters were not exactly functional when they released, and if that had come along with Oryxmas, it would have made half of the event unplayable.
Yeah, but at least seasonal characters are working now and don't erase faults anymore.
As for the actual Valentines events, there were only 2 encounter dungeons that dropped event tokens, then 1 event boss, so that's Belladonna's Garden and the Gardener for the event tokens, then Ocean Trench dropped event tokens, Candyland and Magic Woods dropped event tokens. So if you weren't using these, you had a difficult time progressing through this event. There were the usual quests that you have every year, 1 stack of love letters for each individual piece of the respin Archer set, then another stack for the Belladonna's UTs, another stack for a pet skin of choice, and then there was also a daily mystery skin quest for a Valentine's mystery skin, a daily quest for rainbow stat potions for some reason, and then a repeatable quest for a Valentine's mystery bag, which had some pretty low, medium level rewards in it.
For the mystery stat pots, I could see it.
They were not mystery stat pots. They were rainbow stat pots. You got 1 of each stat pot type.
Yeah, I could see that for, like, trying to max seasonal characters. But really, it was 3 love letters for 1 of each pot, which I don't personally think was worth it, considering how hard it was to get love letters during this event. But I could see it being somewhat useful, so, like, I'm not mad that they added it. Like, it was something. Yeah, I think that's the best way to describe it. It was something.
Without keys, I was barely able to complete the daily spin quest every day, and I didn't do any of the once per account quests, or any of the other daily quests or repeatable quests. However, the daily skin quest was extremely generous for Deca. The past few events have had no skin quest, and then suddenly this one showed up, which had a daily one that was a mystery skin every day. So I actually got quite a lot of skins out of it.
I did the quest for the pet skin, and that was about it.
I did not do the quest for the pet skin. I skipped it because I don't really need the pet skins. I could have done the fox from that and gotten 56 crystals of fortune, which is something people don't actually know about. You can use a duplicate pet skin or skin and exchange it for crystals of fortune, if applicable. Tradable skins and certain skins that don't have an assigned crystal value do not give any crystals of fortune, but everything else will give between 14 and 82 crystals when you use it. And it's 80 to redeem for a mystery skin for the class of your choice.
Which could be a skin you already have, which could get recycled into more crystals of fortune. It's like a reverse pyramid. No, it's like a regular pyramid scheme, where you just lose money.
Yeah, but you could also get a new skin, and eventually you will, and then it's better than getting nothing for your duplicate skins, and they just pile up in your vault, or you feed them if you want to feed them. One particular thing that came up during this event as a big issue was the Cogbold Expedition engine kind of just stops realms from being closed. All Exaltation Encounter dungeons have pretty much done this at some point and have been nerfed periodically over the years. So since Cogbold Expedition engine is new, and it's twice per realm, it was a big issue for these events, and still is for the current Mardi Gras event.
Yeah, it just takes too long to kill. Like, it having 2 turret phases would be fine if it had less HP, but with its current HP, it takes a long time to get it into its turret phases, and then you have to do a turret phase, and then get it back out of its turret phase, and then it goes around, and you have to put it back into its turret phase, and kill its turret phase again, and then kill the engine for the final time. And then it goes away, and then you have to do that a second time for every single realm. Which was fine during the Cogbold Steamworks event, when you had everyone in the realm going to kill the train, but now that you have most of the people in the realm ignoring the train, it takes a very long time to kill.
It would also be more interesting if the second rotation phase wasn't identical to the first rotation phase, since it's just the same thing again, which isn't very interesting, except the rotation's a little bit longer, so you have more time to do damage. The train should also move slower during the rotations, because people have trouble keeping up with it, and don't know that it's most efficient to run ahead of it on the tracks, which is dangerous, but it's also infinitely more efficient than sticking on the side.
Yeah, I will say from personal experience, getting in front of it, because of the way shots work in Realm of the Mad God, the train will run into your shots and you will run away from the train shots. It's pretty safe as long as you don't accidentally fall in the train. You need a minimum of like 40-something speed in order to get ahead of the train, but once you have that, you should be fine.
Indeed. Wait, I forgot about another feature that was added for Valentine's Day. The Playing Now panel, which is under the social tab, was also added for the Valentine's Day event. This allows you to see what other players are in the same map as you, and their stats, and whatever status they may set. You can also set your own status to various things, whether it be running a dungeon, looking for a party, looking for skins or cosmetics, looking to max a stat, or even just like a miscellaneous status. You can put a crab in your status that Deca won't stop you.
My personal favorite status is the confused status, because I am always confused.
I like to put serious play because I am always playing seriously, and you need to tell people when you're doing serious play, otherwise they might not know that you are very serious about farming the same 2 dungeons for the event that Deca put out.
It's also very important if you're doing a custom challenge like a PPE, that you let people know that. You have to tell them that you're doing a custom challenge.
That is true. A few days after the Valentine's Day event started, they also announced a rock, paper, scissors event, which involved a free package that gave rock, paper, and scissors emoji. Then you would play rock, paper, scissors with someone, screenshot that, and post it over on the official Discord.
And that gave you 2 ST chests.
2 ST chests for that, yeah. Which is a pretty good deal considering it only took a few minutes to do it. Of course, you'd have to be in the Discord, you'd have to post in the Discord, you'd have to format it properly, and you have to win a game of rock, paper, scissors, which is easier said than done, believe it or not. You didn't actually have to win, though. You could have just staged a rock, paper, scissors game. Nothing was stopping you from doing that.
You can't prove it was staged.
Exactly. There probably were some.
But yeah, I mean, getting 2 captain's hooks, pretty good deal.
It's also nice to see Deca trying something different with events. This one involved the Discord directly, and it's more fun and interesting, even if it wasn't the most high-effort event, and it ended pretty quickly. And then after that, they immediately did something else with the Discord. They did a skin voting. This is for the Mardi Gras event. They decided everyone can vote for their 3 skins off of a list of skins that Deca provided, and the 9 most voted skins would appear in the Mardi Gras event. So that created a whole thing. You'd vote on the Discord. There were a lot of people who were advocating for specific skins and making lots of posts about how they wanted their skin, or maybe slandering other top skins. There was a lot of that, especially at the start.
Yeah, I know at least one person who was very adamant about a specific skin winning.
I did make a YouTube short advocating for the Desert Occultist Summoner skin, and it did make it into the top 9, just barely. So my efforts were not in vain, and I'm going to complete that quest eventually, but it's a lot of grinding, which we will talk about when we get to the Mardi Gras event. We still have a few more notes before that.
We can move on to the next thing. There's not a lot for this one. I mean, you just got to vote, and then you got the Maid Knight Paladin skin?
Cleaner Maid Paladin skin.
Cleaner Maid Paladin.
Not Maid Knight Paladin. Then we had a public testing session for the new ST sets. Their new ST sets, there's not much to say about them, although they do change the way you play a class. For example, the Priest set has summons that rotate around you and leech life from nearby enemies. And the Ninja set has a star that, instead of giving you speedy on use, it makes you fire extra projectiles while you're holding down your ability key, and it doesn't have a projectile when you let go.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to do something interesting, but at the same time, it's like another set of ST sets. I understand why they make ST sets, because it makes them money, but like, do we really need more? There's so many ST sets now.
We're always going to be getting more ST sets in. You're just going to have to accept that at this point. They made icons for Generation 4, 5, and 6 sets, and we're still on Generation 3, so there's not stopping with those anytime soon, although they only release once every few months now. Before this, the last release we had was back in October, so that's a good 4 months.
Yeah, eventually. I mean, I preferred ST sets when they were actually based off of an enemy. I thought that was cool. I mean, they kind of stopped doing that a long time ago, but I kind of miss that. They should do that again.
That could be fun. At the very least, the ST sets are creative and change how you play the class, which is what an ST set should do. It should be worth playing and also change the experience. The assassin one especially, it makes your weapon the poison, and your poison the weapon.
Which assassin?
Alchemist
ST
assassin.
Set? Oh, okay. I was thinking the one that like drops from Snake Pit and Sewer. When you said assassin ST set.
Acidified assassin also changes how you play a bit, since the dagger has less range, and then the pieces of the set reduce your speed but increase your defense. And then the poison does impact damage and no poison over time damage.
It's kind of a cool set. It makes you feel more like a melee class and less like a dagger class, which, I mean, we already have melee classes, and you don't have as much utility as melee classes, but it's still cool to just have a different way to play, so. And farming out one of those paradots is a very painful experience. I do not recommend. Just get lucky from an ST chest. That's the best way to get that item.
For sure. From Akalos, we have a few announcements related to upcoming content. Although there's been no producer's letter, we do know that the Realm rework is currently a top priority for the team. We don't have any release date. Akalos said it might not even release this year, but it is their top priority, so that's the next major update we're going to see most likely.
I would assume if it comes out this year, it would probably be Oryxmas. Very optimistically, it could be in ModMG, but I highly doubt that.
If we got the Realm rework for Month of the Mad God, it probably wouldn't be very good, or at the very least it would be rushed, like the Shatters rework was, and so we'd miss out on a lot of cool content that the designers would have wanted to put in.
Yeah, optimistically, I would say I would predict Oryxmas for its release, but
Oryxmas at the
I'm not an
earliest.
expert. Yeah. Or Oryxmas is the earliest it can release and be decent.
That's when Steamworks released. It had the full year of development time, and it ended up pretty good, so we could see that with the Realms. The Realm is much bigger than Steamworks, obviously, so it would probably take a bit longer, but it's also not an Exaltation dungeon, so you don't have to put as much intricate design into the individual bosses and battles.
Yeah, I mean, the Realm is massive. I assume they've been working on the Realm rework for a while. They've talked about potential Realm reworks for a long time, so I assume they have a lot of ideas already, and probably a decent amount of work done. Now, granted, this is Deca. We don't know. It's hard to say, but I would assume that there's probably already been a decent amount of work put into it, because it's the Realm. It is the most massive thing in Realm of the Mad God. It's literally what the game's named after.
We also heard from Akalos that there's not a producer's letter planned for this year. That doesn't mean that there won't be one at all, but Akalos is not in the plans of doing... Akalos is not planning to make one, though if the community asks for a lot, there might still be one.
It would be a nice thing to have, a producer's letter, but at the same time, if we don't have it, it's like, not the end of the world. We also found out from an interview with Akalos that he plays PoE, and that is, well, I have only heard bad things about PoE, I'll just say that.
There was the 40-minute interview with Akalos, and though I did watch that, I don't remember much about it. However, the producer's letter, I didn't say this earlier, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I know that Minecraft is not revealing their updates, they only show things when it's ready to be on snapshots, so Deca's probably going to do a similar thing now. That's not necessarily bad, I just hope we get to hear about updates sooner so that we have something to look forward to, because right now, we don't really know what's coming at all besides the Realm rework. And the Easter update's only a month away at this point, so it'd be really nice to know what we're going to see in that update, since it's one of the 3 major updates of the year. They definitely have something planned for it.
I mean, we do also know about Moonlight Village, that's coming eventually. I don't know if that's planned to come with Easter or not, but it could be. We also got a new community manager, who said that they liked Genshin Impact, so we're having some real good track record on favorite games here.
It's important to note this community manager is not full-time on Realm of the Mad God. They're a Deca community manager for a different game, but while Akalos is on vacation, they're also a community manager for Realm of the Mad God a little bit when necessary. So don't go DMing them about your issues. Send that to Akalos.
Yes, please do not harass anyone who is at Deca. They work hard. They do work, okay?
Yeah, despite what it may have looked like from the Wotan era, they do work.
Okay, the Deca employees are not Wotan, okay? They work hard. Not to slander Wotan, you know. Wotan, I loved him. He was a great community manager. In that it was really funny to hear about his antics.
In the patch for the Mardi Gras event, they reworked dungeon modifiers. Now there's no positive or negative ones. They're all neutral. Even though they're the same mods, there's still bad ones and good ones, but they're all considered neutral internally. There are also more reward modifiers, like the heroic regeneration has been expanded on. There's now a heroic speed, a heroic defense, a heroic attack, and one more that I'm forgetting and can't be bothered to look up.
It is heroic damage, heroic speed, heroic frenzy, and heroic defense. One gives armored, one gives berserk, one gives damaging, and one gives speedy.
Those are all grade S. I've seen them on grade S dungeons, so if you were looking for Skin Hunter or something else from grade S, I don't know why you'd want anything other than Skin Hunter, you're going to have a harder time finding it, but on the bright side, you're not going to see Key Fairy as often. They also completely removed Weak Boss, Tame Boss, Ferocious Boss, and Elite Boss. These were all kind of controversial mods. If you had Elite Boss on a dungeon, it would take much longer. That was 45% more health on all bosses. Ferocious Boss scared people away from dungeons. It was 32% more damage on a boss. And then Weak Boss and Tame Boss were the opposite of that, being less health and less damage, which people would often mod onto keys to make them significantly easier, which people didn't like because, well, they were a lot easier than running the dungeon normally, and you got it exclusively from paying, and it wasn't a small amount. It was like as much as $20 for a single key. Now that's on the high end. I've heard people spent around $8 for these, but I've heard inconsistent results on that. $8 seems reasonable enough for one of those god keys, as people would call them.
Yeah, having a dungeon where the boss has significantly less damage or significantly less HP was incredibly broken. It was really cool when you would see it in the realm, but being able to just pay for it kind of ruined the dungeon mod, much like a lot of other dungeon mods, where you would have to nerf the dungeon mod specifically because it was something you could pay for, such as the generous mod.
Mods being balanced around keys is a different issue, and although the removal of these mods was a net positive, it definitely improves the experience overall, and they probably shouldn't have been in the game in the first place. It is a reflection of being able to infinitely reroll keys, and they should definitely do something about that at some point. Though they keep doing little band-aid fixes to push that off.
I will say that potentially with found treasure and souvenir, the chances of getting specific white bags from dungeons is going to get a little out of hand in my opinion, but I don't know.
We'll just have to see how that plays out. For now, people aren't going to be modding keys until some other overpowered mod combination comes up, which is probably inevitable, honestly. And then that will have to be nerfed, and it's just a vicious cycle that will repeat on and on forever.
I do think overall, dungeon modifiers were definitely a positive addition to the game, and I do think that this current update to them overall is positive. I think having 5 levels of Survivor and Unprepared might be a bit excessive and pointless, if you ask me personally, but what can you do?
That's just there to fill in the space that was left by the removal of all the boss mods, since there was really not much on Great STs besides the boss mods, so without those gone, you don't have a lot of positive or negative mods. It mostly would have just been, I think, tough boss and tough minions for Grade S. So they added clean minions and dull minions up to Grade S, and then the new ones, Unprepared, and I think that was actually it for negative mods.
I think Unprepared was the only new one they added, and then they added, they broke Survivor into 5 different levels.
They made Survivor 5 levels, they added Unprepared, and they added a new level to Clean Minions and Dull Minions.
Yeah.
So I've done a bit of playing on this day, and I did notice a lot of skilled minions, clean minions, and the like on Grade S dungeons. I mostly only check Grade S and Grade A because those are the ones that can have Skin Hunter. The Heroic Orb mods do take up the reward mod spot for a lot of the Grade S dungeons, which is annoying, though I did find a couple Skin Hunters. They were mostly on Grade A, and of course they was unsuccessful. I didn't get the skin ever. I also did a few mystery skin dungeons. That mod's always sucked and will continue to suck forever and ever and ever.
Yeah, unless they unless they seriously buff that, there's no way it's going to be useful. Even if you're paying for keys, even if they made the skin shard guaranteed and you paid to modify keys, it would still be more efficient to just buy the skin, whatever skin you wanted, because it is a random skin after running 40 dungeons that you get the drop in, which it's not that common of a drop.
Probably around the same rate as the chef modifier, honestly. That's 33%. But also, if it was a guaranteed token, that would mean you could buy the keys for 40 people, and then that group of 40 people would run 40 dungeons, and then everyone would get a skin. So that's 40 skins in 40 dungeons, so 1 skin per dungeon. And although you're only getting one of those skins personally, the entire group is benefiting from it, so it could see some use on paid keys. In that case,
you don't necessarily have to make the skin token guaranteed for all players. You can do it like Pot's work, where it's guaranteed for 1 or 2 people, and then it's a chance for everyone else.
That would be fair. But then the person paying for the key wouldn't get the skin token every time.
I mean, they could solo if they wanted. If they cared about the skin shard, they could solo and get it.
That is true. I think the best issue that you could resolve from this is infinite rerolls on keys. Those can't continue to exist, because as long as those exist, dungeon modifiers cannot be rewarding, no matter what you do.
I mean, I understand why they have infinite key mod, like you can reroll infinitely. It would feel bad to waste a key to try and continuously mod a key, and then eventually run out of your ability to keep modding it, and Deca has to pay the bills somehow.
It wouldn't necessarily have to be a hard cap on the rerolling of keys. There just needs to be some other sink in there to prevent you from just doing it until you get the exact modifier you want. One thing that I've always suggested is removing nil shards from the shop, because they kind of have no reason to exist, and then making them drop from dungeons, and you need those to modify the key, so that you have some sort of gameplay element that prevents you from just re-rolling continuously until you get the mod you want. Eventually, you will have to run another dungeon to get more shards that you can continue re-rolling.
And then they could make having nil shards drop be a modifier. Wouldn't that be funny?
They might as well do that, because there's no reason to buy them in the shop. Even if you're just buying nil shards to make either nil drops or ore, you're actually just losing a significant amount of money. I think it costs a few hundred gold to forge a single nil drop from buying shards, whereas it's 40 gold to buy a nil drop straight up. And the same goes for ore. You're always better off buying ore directly. And of course, legendary ore and legendary nil shards aren't even for sale. There is no way to get legendary nil shards, except for like 1 or 2 login calendars. So if you have legendary nil shards, those are actually a very rare item, despite they're not seeming very rare at all.
I mean, the point of nil shards is to throw them in mystery boxes and artificially inflate their cost.
That is true, but do people even buy the ore boxes? Because back during the Black Friday event, there was an ore box, and it had infinite rolls, which implies that Deca was not expecting it to sell very much, which is why it had no cap on the amount of rolls you could do on it. So clearly people aren't really buying ores, and there isn't much of a reason to. Sulfur is their big seller for the forge. People will buy sulfur to forge more, and they can provide their own items. Since ore is limited to 1 ore or blueprint per forge, people don't really buy those as much.
Yeah, there's like, if you could use as many ores as you wanted, ores would sell like hotcakes. But because you can only use 1, it's most of the time not worth it to even bother using them. I mean, well, like going out of your way to get them. If you have them, you might as well use them, but going out of your way to get more really doesn't benefit you at all.
Of course, Deca could still have nil shards in mystery boxes if this were the case, because even then, it's like you could roll until you get the mod you want in that case, but only while the mystery box is up, and it would be really inconvenient and kind of annoying, so people wouldn't do it as much. It also would cause people to have to think more about the money they're spending, whereas it's just with a reroll button that you just click and click and click, it wouldn't feel as like you're spending as much. I know that's a marketing tactic that people use and Deca uses.
I mean, Deca's not going to make a decision that will make them less money. Let's be fair here.
That's not true, because they did. They removed the weak boss, tame boss mods. That's going to cost them a ton of money down the road, because they made so much money off of people modding keys for hard mode Shatters. You'd be amazed at how much money one person would spend on a single hard mode Shatters run. They could skip as much as 10 keys, all fully modded with weak boss, tame boss, grade S, just to get one hard mode Shatters run with those mods. And no one would run the Shatters that didn't have the hard mode. They just skip right past them. So it's like $10 each key, and that adds up super fast. So Deca was making so much money off of these mods that they've now removed for the good of the game.
I guess that's fair. Sometimes Deca makes good decisions, but to be fair, they did make a good decision in saying that we're not going to remove the keys that you already have with those mods. You get to keep those keys, and then you just won't be able to get more. Which, that being the case, if you have any of those keys with those mods on them, those are very rare items now and are only going to lower in supply. So you may want to just keep those.
Oh, that's true. People will create a market around these modded keys. If you have a weak boss, tame boss, people will pay a lot. If you have one of those lying around, it's a much easier run. And now those aren't a thing you can just get anymore. So the price for those will continue to go up and up and up. So if you have one, that's money right there.
See, that's why you listen to this podcast, for good financial tips about the RotMG economy.
Now, the dungeon modifier changes, even though we've been talking about them for half this recording now, there was also an event for Mardi Gras, believe it or not. It's pretty much exactly the same as last year, except now there's an additional quest to get the skin that you voted for during the skin voting that we talked about earlier. The skins you can get from that being, I'm going to just go to the announcement really quick, Void Priest, Crab Samurai, Candle Maid Sorceress, Bearsuit Knight, Toast Slice Archer, Cloaked Ascendant Rogue, Twin-Tailed Vocalist Bard, and Desert Occultist Summoner. There's also the Cleaner Maid Paladin in a free pack, which you should definitely pick up if you haven't already.
Yeah, I'm glad that the Bearsuit Knight made it onto the top 8. That's the one I voted for. I might not even pick that one, because I don't really care all that much. I'll probably get the Desert Occultist Summoner skin, just because you pushed that one so hard, but I am glad. Thank you to everyone who voted for Bearsuit Knight. I picked that one at random, and it managed to make it up at the top, so good job, guys.
This Mardi Gras event does have the same issue as the last Mardi Gras event, whereas the only dungeons you can do for the event tokens are Puppet Master's Theater, which is probably the rarest Godlands dungeon, and Puppet Master's Encore, which is a Court of Oryx dungeon, meaning that if you want to get the 80 tokens required to complete the 160 tokens required to complete both of the skin quests for this event, that's 80 Encores or 160 Puppet Master's Theaters, which is really difficult to do without keys, and if you do have keys, you can do it in a few hours, of course. And in addition to that, there's the daily quest for 40 of the tokens to get one of the 4 masks from previous years, and that's a daily, so 40 tokens every day, plus 160 tokens once per account.
I will say, these masks are pretty cool, so I am glad that they're available again as a daily quest, so you can get all of them. But it's really going to be a sacrifice to get these items, because you need so many of the tokens to complete the other 2 quests. And you don't have long to do these quests either. I'm not sure if like the in-game timers for these quests are the extent of it, but currently like you only have like a week to get these skins from the time of the event starts, so it's kind of a sacrifice in order to get any of the masks. Or you have to play the game a lot, which that's a lot of work.
A lot of playing the game, for sure. I'll skip the masks. I always skip the masks. It's too much effort to get them. I'm going to get Desert Occultist Summoner because I worked so hard to get that into the top 8. Then might do the other skin quest. There's like one skin on there that I don't already own, since this is the same skin quest they recycled from last year. And maybe even the year before that. The Mardi Gras event's one of the events that they tend to recycle, along with the Valentines event and the St. Patrick's Day event. We see the same tokens every year with these. There's the festival tokens, the love letters and hearts, and then the golden coins for St. Patrick's Day.
Personally, I am in favor of them keeping the same tokens for these events, simply because I still have tokens from when they've done these events before sitting in my vault, which I'm not going to take those tokens out of my vault and use them for the event, but just knowing that I could makes me feel a little bit better.
I still have tokens from Month of the Mad God 2019. Those ones are not getting reused because they got replaced with the universal tokens for subsequent alien events that we've had since then.
I still have metal scraps.
Yeah, I have metal scraps, the Melodia shards, and Borax shards, all of those shards. I also have the Halloween tokens from that year, the spirits and the coins. Those aren't really used. We'll probably never see other event tokens.
I don't think I have the coins. They have so many event tokens that are still in the game that will never be used again.
Yep. They date back before Month of the Mad God 2019, I think, though. That might actually be the earliest that we saw them. I've never seen anyone with tokens from before Month of the Mad God 2019, at least not within my memory.
I do believe that the O, R, Y, and X letters are still in the game.
Oh, you're right. I think they are. I have none of those.
Those were... I don't remember what the event, like, you traded them in for, but I remember that if you wanted to keep the O, R, Y, X letters, it was a big sacrifice, so I don't think very many, if anyone, still has those. But I do believe they're still in the game.
I think they did that event twice. The first time you traded them for Turtle Knight, and then I don't remember what you traded them for the second time. One final thing that has happened, this is more of a funny thing. You remember how back during the Valentines event, there were guaranteed legendary egg drops from everything?
Yeah.
Well, this patch, when they reworked dungeon modifiers, the XP Boost Minions 2 modifier became a little bugged in that any enemy that didn't have a specified XP drop amount would drop 20,000 fame if this modifier was active. So this was mostly prominent in the Cogbald Steamworks. Every single turret would just drop in 20,000 fame. People gained hundreds of thousands of fame from this. It was in some other places too. I know Secluded Thicket, the totems in the Zolotl boss fight, had this, and then I also heard about it in Toxic Sewers as well. So there's a lot of places you could encounter this bug. And it was very game-breaking. Deca is currently discussing what they're going to do about the people who gained fame from this, but it has been patched. It took them a few hours since it wasn't discovered immediately. The legendary egg thing was discovered right after the patch release, since every dungeon always dropped legendary eggs basically. Since this one was only with a specific modifier, and it didn't apply to every dungeon, it took several hours before people started realizing it existed and before word got to Deca. But it did get fixed, they just haven't said what they're going to do about the people who earn fame yet.
It's hard to say because, like, it's understandable that they would want to take the fame away from people, but at the same time, that's breeds animosity between Deca and players, and I don't think that's necessarily the best way to go about it. But it's hard because it's also not really that fair to other people to give these people hundreds of thousands of fame for doing basically nothing.
This is a much more complicated issue than we had with the guaranteed Earthen Wand from back during Elemental Equinox last year, or the Legendary X from the Valentines patch, because there's actually a fame leaderboard that's in the game, and so people who got a lot of fame are going to be not on that leaderboard, or they are going to be on that leaderboard, and it wouldn't be very fair since they got it with no effort at all or no playtime at all.
Yeah, it's ultimately up for Deca to decide, and we'll see what happens. I'm glad I don't have to make that decision, though.
Oh, definitely. I don't think they're discussing it right now, since it's past Deca's work hours, so it'll have to be tomorrow morning when we find out what the conclusion of all that is. But that's all the notes I have from the start of 2023 up until right now.
I think that's pretty much all I had on my list as well, unless we wanted to talk about some of the different Battle Pass missions.
The Battle Pass missions. Running Voids is not fun. I will say it is near impossible to get a group to run Void without a organized Discord. Even on the official Discord, you can ask for a group and no one will join you.
Yeah, Void is really set up to be run by Discords. Like, it does not particularly function well in a public group. It is doable. I've done a Void in a public group before a couple of times, but it is not optimized for doing it with randoms in public.
The Shatters is also difficult, although you can solo that one. It's a huge pain to do that, because it takes a long time, and when you're playing an MMO, you want to have other players with you.
Yeah, and considering how long Shatters takes normally, even if you're not with a group, like even if you're with a good group, Shatters takes a long time. So is it really worth it to solo?
Well, it is worth it to solo Shatters, because you're guaranteed a tier 14 sub-weapon and a tier 15 armor if you do. It just takes a long time, and then there's always the possibility that you'll be forced to Nexus during the Patience phase in the Forgotten King, and that feels really bad since it's right at the end and it's the hardest phase.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm still not a big fan of new Shatters. Though I was a very adamant detractor of old Shatters, so it's hard to say which one I like less.
Now that Shatters gives 2 exaltations, one from Archmage and one from King, it's pretty much fine as is, since you can leave after Archmage and still get an exaltation, so it doesn't feel as bad to be forced to Nexus from the Forgotten King fight. It's still a long dungeon, but that's not necessarily the worst thing ever. It's just not something that I would want to run all day, which some people do, and that baffles me. I don't get how people do that. I'll attempt one, maybe a few Shatters. If I have a group of people to run with, I'll do a couple in a day, on a good day.
Yeah, I don't know. I did too many old Shatters, and I have trauma from Shatters. I fully exalted Knight on attack, so I want to exalt Summoner on attack, but I don't know if it's worth it. I might just play Knight and fully exalt Knight if I'm gonna fully exalt a class, because I don't really want to run new Shatters.
Like I said, for exaltations, it's not that bad anymore since the Archmage gives an exalt. The Void is still difficult though, and you have to run 75 of those to get your mana exalt, though that one also gives a defense exalt at the same time thanks to Marble Colossus. But there's no chance you solo a Void unless you have top level gear and get lucky and have efficient play.
Yeah, Void is just, it's not designed to be played solo.
And the mission requires you to do 26 of them versus the 16 Shatters, which is much less. And of course,
the Shatters, I do think only having to do 16 of those is pretty generous, and I do appreciate that. Plus, you can do just one Shatters and still get a Royal Epic Quest chest, which is pretty generous.
That is good, but the titles are at the end, and that's the real prize, because titles are fun to collect. Nigel will disagree with me on that one, though.
Yeah, if I hadn't already missed out on several titles, I feel like I would be obsessed with collecting all of them. But because I've already missed out on so many titles that I'll never be able to get, it's just not necessarily worth it for me to collect more titles. Though Voidwalker is a cool title, so maybe I'll go for that one.
There are exclusive titles, like when you're a future seeker and you make a dungeon, Deca lets you pick a title to give to yourself and only yourself. So that means that there's one title that only one person in the entire game has and no one else can get it. But if you don't think about that, it's fun to collect the titles, and I have all the titles if you consider that one as doesn't actually exist.
Just become a future seeker and ask for that title.
That's not I didn't make the dungeon. When you make the dungeon, you get your own unique title. Because you've made a dungeon.
Yeah, just say that your own unique, just pick the same unique
Of course,
title.
I'll pick the same unique one-of-a-kind title. They'll allow that. Also, I'd have to become a future seeker, which they're not accepting new future seekers right now. And I would have to pitch a dungeon, have it accepted, then actually make the dungeon, have it get released. There's a lot of steps that I don't really care to do to get to that point.
Yeah. But how much do you think Deca actually vets the titles that people ask for?
Well, considering the one title that they did give out was Wet Realmer, probably not very much.
That's
the title.
That's
That's the title for the Wetlands creator, yeah.
See, this is why we can't have nice things. This is why they're not accepting future seekers. This is why they don't let people just pick their skins anymore. This is why they don't take fan skins very often anymore. This is why.
No, the reason they don't have future seekers or fan content so much is because Akalos hates the system that Wotan set up, and he's changing it. And Akalos is actually making efforts to change that. It's just not a top priority, it doesn't seem like, since there's a community to manage and updates to worry about. Of course, Wotan, he chose to prioritize the future seekers and the fan content over these updates, and that's why we never saw Wotan ever.
What do you mean? He was always on Discord. You know.
Yeah,
Bobby Joe. I'm always on Discord.
It's true.
Well, we all have different roles to play, Bobby Joe. It's so we all do different stuff in the game. It's not like you guys don't see me. You probably just don't see me in the places you're looking for. So I'm always on Discord. Just reach out to me. I always answer. And you know that, come on. You talk to me sometimes on Discord.
But yeah, I think that's really all that's happened this year, Until we get a major update like Easter, there's not really a lot to talk about.
There have been leaks for shiny items that would be a rare alternative variant of all the untiered items in the game. Those are just leaks, but they have been talked about, and it seems like they will most likely be coming to the game. We've seen sprites for a few items.
Didn't we already get shiny items before, and it was a really terrible system, and no one liked it?
I don't think we did, not to my knowledge.
We got it was a specific item you could get that you could put on either a Juggernaut or I believe a Quiver of Thunder.
That was not shiny items, that was just a paid cosmetic addition onto items. This would be like shinies from Pokemon, where rarely you get an alternative.
I mean, it's not the same
different.
system, but I didn't remember what they were called, so...
We'll have to see what people think of it when it actually releases. Since it's just a leak right now, a lot of people don't know about it. And so it's not really worth talking about, as long as it's still a leak. But I thought I'd bring it up because padding, honestly. We're not quite to an hour on the recording, and like half of this is going to be cut out. And I
Yeah,
love
I mean, as
padding.
long as we get to like a half hour,
I
it
think
should be good.
A half hour is fine, especially since I don't think Realm players have the attention span to sit for more than 2 minutes. But if you're here, you did it. You're in the top percentage of Realm of the Mad God players who have a greater
Yeah.
than 20-second attention span.
Maybe if I'm not lazy, I will update the description eventually to show you what the average watch time is, and you can see how good of a person you are, how much better than average you are.
Now I need to check the viewer on the Steamworks guide I made. What's the engagement? It has a bunch of dips and heights for different phases since I divided it into chapters. But generally only like 20% of people are watching at the lowest points, 19% there. So yeah, you're in the top 20% of people if you're still around, maybe even higher.
Yeah, check the description a week from now. Maybe.
Maybe. If this video is even released. I mean, there were like 2 episodes that we recorded last year that never saw the light of day. We don't talk about those.
That was entirely my fault. Well, one of those was my fault. The other one was just not a good episode.
That's true. It was kind of a mess, but it was funny though.
It was really funny, but it really didn't fit, and it was really demotivating to edit it because I didn't know what to do. I wanted to cut out the entire thing, but it felt bad cutting out anything, so...
Yeah. It's in the past now. Now we're gonna record a podcast every single... Maybe there will be another one this year.
We're gonna record at least one podcast every 3 years. I'll make that as a promise.
Alright, you heard it. One
I'm not gonna
podcast
promise
at
that we'll
least
release a podcast every 3 years.
Okay, that's fair enough.
We'll just record one, okay? And then really editing is where the podcast train runs into the biggest roadblock. Is because editing is hard and I'm bad.
We'll add more padding, because, I just realized we could say, hey, what are your thoughts? Comment on this right now with your thoughts. And then at the end of the next podcast, we discuss those comments for even more padding.
Yeah. Also, shout out to Faffy for the fan art they drew for our last episode. We never got to shout that out because we never released an episode after that fan art was made. But yeah, shout out to Faffy.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that. It appeared in the thumbnail for the apology video.
That's probably the best video on this channel. The Vindication trailer reaction that I did was also pretty funny, but yeah. Wow, I literally just stopped having words. The 2019 apology video is a very good video. You should watch that.
That's a good idea. I should update the channel assets. These are like a year old. That being said though, until next time, this is Cat Jones.
And Bilbo's bag.
And we'll see you next podcast, which could be soon, it could be not soon. We love to keep you guessing on this channel.
Oh yeah, you can check out our other channels.
It's
Cat
true.
Jones updates his channel pretty regularly, and I update my channel once every now and then.
Whenever there's a Tovin to be saved, Bilbo's bag will be there.
Yes. Well, I mean, sometimes even when there's not a Tovin to be saved, because guess what? Tovin lives, okay?
It's true.
He lives. He didn't die, okay? He put a cloak on and he disappeared, and then he snuck into the Steamworks scrapyard, and he's just safe in there, and he's going on a date with the Catboy Sorcerer.
And that's that. We're ending the podcast on that.
Yeah. Send us your fan art of Toven and Cowboy Sorcerer going out on a date. We'll show it in the next podcast episode.